All right, guys, so what I've done is tried to draw it here a little bit to help you understand what I'm trying to get at. So a lot of the videos that I looked at online, out of curiosity, is just to see what was out there. They all basically mention, obviously, you want to do the vertical, right, on your cylinder here, straight up, which is your thrust. But then most of them just say, oh, let's just do a 45 from that, and then take basically two measurements, and then they have you go 3 down. So you're taking more or less 6 measurements. I've always been taught you want to do 9 measurements per cylinder. So you've got your thrust or your vertical, but then you also want to do another one in this direction and another one in this direction. Basically, split it up in thirds. That way it will give you a much better indication of your out of round to determine if your cylinder is truly round or not. And then obviously, based on those 9 measurements, you'll also get a better understanding if your cylinder has a lot of taper or not. And so what I do is I go down 1-inch increments from the top down and do it. Well, you say, why wouldn't you do it at the very top? Think about a piston here. Your 2 rings are down about 3/4 of an inch to your bottom ring. When you get down to your, now you're down to your oil control rings, now you're down about 1 inch. So I start down about 1 inch into the bore, and then I go down 2 inches and then about 3 inches. And you don't really need to go too much further than that because really, the rings aren't going to be going too much further down for sealing purposes. So you could go down maybe 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4, something like that if you wanted to. It all depends on what your bore and stroke is. For this one, I'm going to do about 1 inch, inch down increments and take my 9 readings. So then once you get your 9 readings, you'll want to subtract your largest from your smallest and determine basically what your biggest ranges or gap. So in my case, I'm going to go with about 1,007 inches as allowable. But obviously, depending on what make and manufacturer of engine you have, some of the newer engines, may be much more tighter tolerance. This is just a fun street strip car, so I'm going to go with 1,000ths, maximum allowable. So now what I'm going to go to do is we'll go set up my cylinder bore gauge. I'll show you how I set it up, and then I'll do a little time lapse. I'll walk you through one on this cylinder, how I do it. Start recording the measurements, and I'll do a little time lapse at the end, and then I'll do the math, and I'll show you what my end results are. So hang tight, let me get set up. All right, guys, so now I've got my cylinder bore gauge set up with the proper shim, the proper pin here, got the gauge set in place. This is tightened. So I've got now my caliper set up to 4.00, which is basically 4 inches. Now we need to set this in here, and what we need to do is we want to rock this and find basically where it stops moving, and then move the dial, to that 0 point. So that's what we need to try and do. So this is going to fall in and out a couple of times. Just the nature of the beast. So now we'll rock this. All right about there. So I need to move it. All right, so I need to move this right about here. Let's find this again. Right about there. And there we go. So we're hitting 0. So it is kind of a pain in the butt to do this, but now that we've got it set up to 4.00, now when we slip it in the cylinder bore, we basically now will see how many thousandths we're off. So now let me go ahead and set up the camera, and we'll do a cylinder bore. All right. So what I've done now is I've placed the cylinder bore gauge and the cylinder bore. This happens to be number 1 cylinder. About 1 inch down of the bore, as you can see. And what we're going to do is now we're going to look, rock it, and look to see where we're at. You can see right about there is about where we're at. And taking a look at it, we're roughly about 5/10,000ths of an inch at the top. So now what we'll do is we'll go down about now 2 inches roughly in our thrust, rock it back and forth, and it looks like there now we've got about 1/1000th of an inch. So you take all your readings, go down again about another inch, and I'm looking at it obviously from an angle here, but it looks to me like about 1/1000th of an inch again. So 4.001, because this is 5/10,000ths graduations. So then what you would do is come over here, rock it, again, an inch at a different angle, take your reading, come this way, rock it, take your reading, and then that's how you would get your 9 cylinder measurements for this one cylinder. Then you want to do the rest for all the rest. And that's where I'll do a little time lapse here, and then we'll kind of wrap it up and I'll show you the readings at the end. All right, guys, so basically here's my measurements. So here's my, for example, number 2 cylinder. Here's my top, middle, and bottom. Top, middle, bottom, top, middle, bottom. And you can see basically in this series, there was really nothing. And then if you look at the bottom, okay, 2000ths, okay. So from a taper standpoint, really this is looking pretty good, and from an out around standpoint too, really everything's within about 1/1000ths. So I didn't see anything looking at all the cylinders that really would cause me not to be able to just hone this engine out, put some new rings in it with the old pistons. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. So with that said, guys, I hope this little tutorial on using a cylinder bore gauge kind of helps you out determine what you need to do with your engine. If it's okay to go ahead and just use a dingleberry hone and just hone the cylinders good, and then go ahead and put some new rings in. Make sure your ring gap obviously is good, clean your old pistons up real good, that kind of thing. So I hope this video kind of helps you. Again, I know there's a lot of them out there, but this is my take on how to do it. Doing 3 measurements, or 9 times per cylinder to make sure you truly have good out of round and taper, versus a lot of the others have you only do 6. That was really my key point for kind of doing this video. So again, I hope this helps you guys out. Thanks for watching. As they say, like, subscribe, hit the little bell for future content. You guys take care and have a great day.